few weeks ago, I read an article that was titled, How to Be Lazy. And this article was targeted towards people who are type A perfectionists, who do not know how to value free time in their lives. I strongly resonated with this article, so I decided to adopt some of its practices. Now, I shared this with some of my friends and my family, and most of them were surprised. They thought it would be to my detriment. And in fact, one person even said, oh, this is the typical malas Malaysian attitude. What they failed to realize is that this was a part of a process for me in mastering myself and harnessing my potential. Today's theme is where I stand. And rightfully, as Mr. Kumar pointed out, if I want to be able to stand in the community and in the world, I need to be able to have the capacity and energy to take a stand within my own life. And I consider taking a stand in my own life by mastering myself. What I consider self-mastery is the process of understanding and embracing our strengths and weaknesses, traits, deepest emotions, and using this to harness our potential to achieve success for the way in which we personally define success. Allow me to share with you a bit about my personal story. So I come from a small and cute family here in Malaysia. We grew up here. I studied at SMK Bukit Bandaraya, which is not far away, in fact. I was one of those students who always ponted in class. I was not in class most of the time. But when it came to exams, I did fairly well, and I did really well when it actually mattered. I started exploring the world around me and started seeing the inequality that exists when it came to access to education. I found that education really empowered me, and the opportunities that I got through education really widened my horizons and helped me to connect to platforms and people that helped me grow. And I started realizing that circumstances of birth decide where you get your opportunities of education. And that's when it started becoming a very passionate and personal matter for me. So then I did my SPM and I did pretty well. I applied for the JPA scholarship. I went abroad and started studying. And now I was doing a law degree because everyone told me, you can talk, you can argue, and you enjoy it. So why not law? So I did a law degree. And in my second year, I found that I love this degree, I love the skills I get from it, but there's no way I'm going to go and practice in Malaysian courts. There's no way that's happening. And a lot of people were like, okay, so what are you doing then? I mean, I was not the usual student in law school. They knew exactly where they're going to do their bar, which country are they going to practice in, and what's the type of law that they're going to work in. So I had actually, when I was a teenager, started a small tutoring project with an orphanage nearby. And I found that this was a hobby, a passion, and something that I felt gave me a bigger direction. And when I went to university, I decided to volunteer in London with a small NGO. I got bored, and I decided to go on a volunteering project in Nepal. Now, we all know volunteering projects have ethical connotations to them. But for me, this was a great time for me to explore and widen my horizons further to something beyond that I had seen before. I had lived in Malaysia my whole life, and I had just started studying abroad in London. And I ran this project in Nepal, and that's how the Social Enterprise Project came about, and it's been running for a few years now. And I was passionately going about this, trying to explore my world and figure out, so what really is my career? And one day I got an email, and I thought it was junk. I sent it to the trash can. And a few weeks later, I received an email again. It was actually from the United Nations. They have been going through a process where they realized they're not very relevant to younger generations, and they wanted to become more relevant. And they wanted a young person to lead and develop this program within the UN. And suddenly I found myself there with a group of people working with the UN Changemakers. Fast forward a year later, I was sitting on an advisory panel advising the royal family in the development of the Queen's Young Leaders Program. And the biggest reason that they felt that I should have been there is because of my passion, my commitment to making a change in education through my everyday life since I was really young. Now, today I stand here, I'm leading an NGO called MCII. It's a Malaysian NGO in education. We work in Klang with schools there, bringing about holistic change within the education system. Not easy, as you know, but we try, and all of us try together. Throughout this journey, people have asked me, especially in recent times, what is it that really helped you grow and kept you going throughout this journey? This speech is basically the answer to that question. I am going to go through 5 aspects of self-mastery that I found was simple and really helped me through this whole process. the first thing I'd like to talk about is that self-mastery is not the search for perfection. It's not the search for being a perfect human being. The inspiring dancer here earlier mentioned that when she was young, she thought dancers needed to be perfect. Perfect body, perfect posture, perfect everything. And I was the same. When I went abroad, I was like, I had this opportunity to study abroad. I have to do really well. I tried to be super punctual. I tried to keep my attendance very high. I tried to focus in classes. I tried to have a study schedule. At the start of academic year, you plan your whole year, and then 3 days later, of course, it didn't work. So I started going through this process of trying to achieve these goals and failing, and trying to achieve it and failing, and I started getting into a really bad place. And after some time, I started realizing, hold up, the ways in which I've been managing my own life actually started showing fruition. I did not need to follow the conventional ways to be able to harness my potential, and I could do it in the ways that people thought didn't make sense. I can't tell you the exact numbers, but my attendance at university was very, very low. So we need to stop searching for that perfect human being and stop trying to be that perfect person. We need to realize that perfection is our strengths and our weaknesses and harnessing it in the right way. The second aspect of self-mastery I'd like to talk about is something we all are familiar with, the art of letting go. Most of you here are university students. I'm sure all of us have gone through a fair share of breakups, rejections from that particular internship, from that job role, the one that you thought you loved, the love of your life, who told you, I can never love you back. We've all been through this, and the sad thing is, well, maybe not so sad, we will go through dejections at every stage of our life and at every aspect. So the fine art is in how you manage these, not avoiding these situations, not avoiding disappointments. And for me, that fine art is emotional intelligence. Allow me to share with you a bit on some publications in the World Business Forum last year on emotional intelligence. It was found that, firstly, people with average IQs outperformed people with high IQs by 70%. So IQ is referring to intelligence quotient. And the second thing they found was there was no known correlation between IQ, your intelligence, and EQ, your emotional intelligence. Thirdly, they found that intelligence is something you're born with. You have it when you're 15 and you have the same thing when you're 50. But emotional intelligence is a set of skills that you can grow and develop over time. And finally, they also proved that people with higher emotional intelligence showed higher success in the sense of higher job satisfaction, higher salaries, and higher performance in personal and professional lives. So what does this tell us? If IQ does not really determine where we are, and it's not something that's set in stone that we just have to follow and abide, that we can really harness our potential by using the concept of emotional intelligence. I'm not here to tell you how to deal with that breakup, because all of us deal with it differently, but I'm here to invite you to delve further into emotional intelligence and understand how it can really take you from step to step. The next aspect I'd like to talk about, the third aspect, is perseverance. We really need to reframe failures in our minds. Think of it as a maze. If there are 10 different routes that you can explore within a maze, 9 out of the 10 are not going to get you to where you want to be, but one of them is. But as you're exploring that maze, every time you come to a dead end, you're not going to sit down and be like, I'm done, I'm not moving. You have to get to the end. And that's what failures are. Failures are a roadblock that show you need to go to a different path to achieve what you want to achieve. And a lot of times, failures show you and help you understand what success means to yourself. When I was applying for university, I applied to Oxford and King's College, and I was a huge Oxford lover. It was my dream since I was a young child. And I went right through the end of that process. I went to the final interview in Oxford, and I came back, and I still remember the date, on the 21st of December, I got a rejection from Oxford. And that was the biggest disappointment in my life. It's really something that has affected me for so many years after. And I had an offer from King's College, and I really was not able to appreciate the value of that paper sitting on my table. Fast forward many years later, being in London gave me the platform, the opportunities to meet the right people, to be at the right place, to be in the right university, to explore my potential and harness it. And I think that if I was more aware of my ability to do that, I would have been able to harness my potential more. That being said, I'm so appreciative of that experience. You know, Procter & Gamble, they have this award for their employees called the Heroic Failure Award. one of the employees who has the biggest failure, they give this award to that person. And in fact, Supercell, the gaming company that owns Clash of Clans, every time they create a game that fails, they celebrate in the company with bottles of champagne. I would love that. But the thing is, you see how failures really need to be reframed, and we really need to know that failures are not the end of the line, and failures or disappointments are just the next step taking us closer to where we want to get. Failures to me are the machete through which we clear the bushes so that we can see further and be clearer about where we want to get. As I now run an NGO, MCII, I deal with a variety of different stakeholders every day. Government officials, corporate funders, NGOs, schools. And I don't have a boss to tell me you're doing right, you're doing wrong. I don't have someone to tell me this is how you should go about it or not. I have to figure it out myself with the team. And through this, I realized that a lot of self-motivation, a lot of daily setting of small goals and small steps. I realized the way in which we see failure really needs to be the way in which we see success too. Mr. Kupjadani pointed out earlier, I strongly resonated with him when he said that we cannot be complacent with success. A lot of people talk about how we address failure, but we need to see failure and success through the same eyes. We experience it, we feel proud or disappointed, we move on and we think about the next steps. The fourth aspect I'd like to talk about is goal setting and self-awareness. Perseverance without a destination or without a direction is redundant, and we all know that. In real life now, on the roads, we have ways to tell us how to get to where we want to get to. But we don't have a ways for our personal lives, our personal journeys, relationships, and our careers. And in the world today, there's a distinct obsession with goals. In companies, they talk about KPIs. In universities, they talk about your assessments and your results. In schools, they talk about SPM. In self-help books, they talk about, think about where you want to be, envision it, work towards it. But there's a lot of value in not knowing exactly where I'm going to be in 10 years. I could not have predicted being here today. Google has Google Innovation Day, where they spend 20% of their resources, 1 day a week, where the engineers don't work on anything Google related. They just invest their time doing other creative and cool things. They have seen the value in their creative freedom. I was a law student in my second year when I figured out I don't want to do law, I don't want to practice as a lawyer. And I was like, so what do I do next? And people around me were also confused, but thankfully my family was supportive of my confusion. So I did not know where I was going to be in 10 years, and interviewers kept asking me that questions. But all I knew was that I have strength in interpersonal skills, in leadership, in project management. And I also knew I had a passion in education because I had those projects running. And I also know that I did not want to become a lawyer. I would not have been able to predict being here today. And hence, I would like to invite you to realize that you do not need to know exactly where you want to be in 10 years from now, or in 5 years from now. But you need to be aware of your current strengths, your current interests. Where is it pushing you towards, and how can you take that further? The fifth and final aspect of self-awareness I'd like to talk about is self-love. In this age of consumerism and consumer culture, I believe one of your speakers later will be talking about it in more detail. Self-love, loving yourself, appreciating who you are as a person and individual, is expensive. We are taught to want to buy that, own that, be like that person, follow this person on Instagram, look at those shoes. Don't get me wrong, capitalism and consumerism have provided us with convenience. I can now own a car to get from A to B, which human beings couldn't do at one point. But too much choice also causes mass confusion. And all the time that we actually spend without realizing, thinking about these choices in daily life, they don't really affect our personal and long-term growth. So, when I was in London studying, and in my second year, as I mentioned earlier, was one of my toughest years in building up this process. I was volunteering and, sitting on my own in these volunteering programs, going to university, not having very many friends, and really not feeling motivated about life at all. But there was one thing that kept me going. A lot of people know this about me. My favorite food in the world is thosai. I can eat it every day. I had it for breakfast today as well, so I had the energy to come in. And when I was in London, every week I used to take a 1.5-hour train ride out to a thosai shop, have my thosai alone with my hot drink, just with myself and my sense of self-awareness and peace. And some people called it crazy because I was a poor student, but I would spend that money and time 1.5 hours out, 1.5 hours in every day. But Oprah, in her book on how you achieve your personal potential and how you grow and develop, she says that if you're not doing 6 things that you love every week, and she says you have to write them down and tick them off. 6 things you love every week, you're not going to be leading a long-term happy life. So this Toasted trip was one of those things that I loved doing. And I found that it was something that really helped me grow, really helped me develop, and gave me the time and energy to process things that didn't make me very happy. Now, having gone through the 5 aspects of self-mastery that I hope was simple, ultimately, if there's one thing for you to take back from this speech, is self-reflection. Self-reflection is the underlying tone that took me through all of these various steps and took me from this confused young student in SMKBB to where I am today. I have a lot to share with you in terms of the challenges, the ups and downs that I experience every day, but that's for another time. But all I can tell you is self-reflection. Taking that time, and it doesn't have to be much, but a little bit of time a day or a week to think about where I am, what I'm doing, how I interact with people around me and with the world, and what do I want to do, what makes me really happy. That's really something that I hope all of you can take back with you today. Self-reflection has really helped me harness my potential, expand my worldview. I hope it continues accompanying me on my journey, and I hope it accompanies you on yours. In 2013, at the Harvard commencement, Oprah quoted this: "You will find true success and happiness if you have only one goal, and that is this: to fulfill the highest, most truthful expression of yourself as a human being." Theologian Howard Thurman said it best: "Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and do that. Because what the world needs is people who come alive." And today I'm so proud to be standing here along with such interesting speakers from different backgrounds, fairy tales, dancing, Microsoft, and so many other experiences, and I'm proud to be able to share my stories with you, and I hope you take something back from today. Thank you very much.